Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode. Takeoff, shall we say, from last week's video, which I'll put right here, about designing, and the week before that regarding kind of being successful at a landscape project, a DIY landscape project. I'm bringing this week kind of a remake, and I want to revisit it because I think it's very important and goes along with what we've talked about the past 2 weeks. This week we're talking about landscape themes and how you as a DIY designer and maybe putting a project together for yourself, at least you can get some ideas, some motivation, or some direction as far as what kind of theme are you going to try to pull off with this new landscape project or landscape makeover. Either one. Let's get rolling, shall we? I'm glad you're here. So when I used to sit down at the old kitchen table and I would talk to folks as they called me and consulted for designing work and hopefully contractual work later on, I would get into conversations. They would kind of go like, what's your wants, what's your needs? But then I also hit them with this. I said, do you have a particular theme in mind? And they would always kind of do one of these numbers. And what's a theme? And if you think about it, much like movie themes, much like architectural building themes, and even the old theme parks that we go to recreate, everything has a particular theme, and landscapes are no different. Now you can blend various themes, but if you get it too confusing, it's just that. It starts to look a little confusing. You can't have a little bit of this and then a little bit of that, and they're so contrasting they don't make sense. So, what kind of landscape theme might you be thinking of? I'd like to go over a few of them and then wrap up with a summary, if you will. So one of the most classic themes that were ever produced, ones that very few people have, and it should kind of go kind of an all or none type of theme. Maybe like an all backyard or an all front yard. But that is the Oriental or the Japanese theme of landscape design. Very hard one to pull off in authenticity unless you do some really good research and due diligence, thinking it out, planning it out, designing it out, and then executing it. You know, not the lowest maintenance landscape you'd ever have. Yes, 99% of them are lawnless. And that's another theme in just a few minutes. But most of the time it involves some creative pruning, creative layout, that feng shui type of approach to things so that, you know, your nirvana is balanced, shall we say. And you have water features, bonsai type of plant material, small dwarf type of things that are pruned to the nines and kept, and then raked out gravels and sands and different colored gravels intermixed to represent water if you don't put water in. So the Japanese theme is a real luxurious and very, very striking type of landscape theme. You just have to be very prepared to pull it off authentically and not just do it half-assed. Half-assed just makes you look like you didn't think it out. So Japanese theme would be right there at the top of the list as far as the most recognizable theme. But let's move on to some other ones. And now as I sit here, I gotta apologize in advance should the wind where we're located at comes up even more than it is right now. I apologize. We'll call it the blustery southeast theme right now. But moving on, let's talk about the natural blend theme. Natural blend is a lower maintenance theme that is generally applicable to more rural settings. And when I say rural, you went and bought yourself a couple 2, 5, 10 acre parcels. You got a cut-in driveway and you got your house location. And around the house, to whatever varying degree, you're going to landscape it in an ornamental fashion. But then as you get away from the dwelling and through your ornamental portion of the landscape, You're going to blend it right back in to what it's been for 1,000 years. It's going to be that natural grasses, natural shrubberies, natural trees, whatever it might be. But that natural blend should kind of fade. It shouldn't be a real distinct line. It should be kind of like it's trying to take over again, but you keep it at bay on purpose, just not in a real obvious fashion. So remember that. You know, many times you have, in some of the more fire-prone places in the country and the world, natural blends tend to be a little bit of a fire break between a threat or a potential threat and your home. So most of the time we have turf grasses, we have low flammable type of shrub material and ground covers, and these things tend to slow flames down, and you get that 100-foot defensible space around your dwelling. So natural blends are used quite frequently out west where the potential wildfire threat is. In some natural blend themes, they're also popular with the off-grid community. And when I say off-grid, I'm talking about you probably have a low volume well, you have solar systems, you have another type of theme around your house, which we'll talk about in a second. But then most of your water usage may come from natural sources like the lake that's down the slope from you, or the creek that flows behind you, or you have rain capture. But most everything is low voltage pumping, so most people use drip irrigation. Obviously not made for turf unless you're in an area of the country or world that gets regular rains and you don't have to worry about an irrigation system. Natural blend theme is a very popular thing in the western US. You'll see it quite frequently. Okay, let's go on to our third one. Hey, for the last 6-7 years, this theme has been numero uno in the western part of the United States. And when I say the western part, I'm talking mid-Oregon, south through California, east throughout the entire country, all the way to Texas almost. I would even say Texas and then up into southern Colorado, and that's the massive droughts that they've suffered. Thank God that this winter has been above average rainfall and snowfall. It is really going to put a dagger in some of that drought levels that they have had. You've seen the reservoirs that have come up. I remember seeing Lake Oroville in Northern California coming up 182 feet since the rains started in December. That's a fantastic recapture of water. Heck, and even Lake Mead is coming up. But the landscape theme that we're talking about is the lawnless landscape theme. It is one that back in the recession of 08 to whatever it went to, I don't know, 08 to 12, it's what kept me afloat as a businessman, because everything that I did, most everything that I did was taking out thirsty lawns and putting in lawnless landscapes. And they became very, very niche marketed. They really did. I enjoyed doing them because it brought so much more creativity than putting irrigation and slapping sod down. It had incorporated cobblestones and boulders, ground covers and drip irrigation, lighting systems, and less water-thirsty type of shrubs and trees. It was one of my favorite times as a landscape contractor and designer because it really kind of called your attention to things that were new. And when it comes to designing, we don't always do it, but we try not to get into the rubber stamp landscapes where you can go, oh, that's Joe's landscape. Yeah, there's another Joe's landscape. Yeah, Joe did that one too. And I tried never get to that level of redundancy. We tried to have something a little bit different. So when I presented lawnless landscape designs to my clients, I would have to do some explaining to them and the kind of theme that we were going along with. And it's kind of what they wanted, and that's why I was there. And for the most part, you know, I generally got the design out of it, and I'd say about 8 out of 10 times, because I did call people back, that I got the job too. So it was a very good time in a deep recession that kept a small businessman afloat. Lawnless landscapes can reduce, depending on the selection of what shrubs, ground cover, tree material, you can reduce your water needs by up to 90%. And I'll show you one coming up that's a solid 90, even 95%, depending on what you're re-landscaping. Lawnless landscapes are almost 99% of the time drip irrigation. Drip irrigation that is in such a fashion that you're using a gallon per hour type of emitters. Now imagine throwing water out onto a lawn 3 and 4 times a week in many places and putting out hundreds and hundreds of gallons, and then you go down to a gallon per hour. Talk about a water conservancy. You know, that it really did. It's really a way to reduce maintenance, reduce water usage, reduce maintenance in many cases. You just have to pay attention to it at first. Okay, so don't forget lawnless landscapes. And let's move on to another one. One of my favorites, one of my favorite landscape themes, which can be blended with ornamental type of themes, and that is your sustainable landscapes. A landscape that is predominantly installed with the purpose of giving you something back. You have a harvestable type of landscape, and it can come from anything from fruit trees to vegetables to leafy greens to berries. I mean, anything that can keep you afloat. Very, very popular, swinging it into the homestead type of environment where you have not just plant materials and sustainable landscapes, but then you have livestock and other ways of supporting yourself and growing food. You don't have to walk into a grocery store, hardly at all, ever. Sustainable themes can come in many, many fashions and at various degrees when it comes to percentage of the landscape that is actually a sustainable means. You may have a small hobby orchard where you have various, that's what we had at Weed Patch Ranch. We had all kinds of fruit trees, all kinds of berries, all kinds of blueberries, blackberries, logans, boysen's. We had grapes, we had, I mean, everything. And we so much under this theme that we had probably about 50% of the landscape was sustainable. And it made you really, really prepare for and look forward to upcoming seasons. You really did. Is it a reduced maintenance type of landscape theme? No, I would not say so. You have to pay attention. You have to cultivate, fertilize, compost, prune, sometimes spray to protect your harvest and to ensure a better harvest next year. So turning ground over, letting ground stay fallow for a season, pruning in the winter time, pruning back berries, learning how to do that, peach trees, whatever you want. But a sustainable theme is really fun. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest home runs that come from this is if you have kids. You can really indoctrinate them and educate them at an early age on why we do certain things, and then show them the results in the coming season. See why we pruned everything, Johnny or Sally? This is why we do it. Now, enjoy that peach. Can you think of anything better than bringing something into your world that with your own 2 hands, and then you enjoyed it as part of a meal or a snack? So sustainable themes, very big on my list. Maybe part of your landscape can have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but part of it will be sustainable. Okay, let's move on to another theme. This one is a historical theme, and that's not the name of it. The name of it is formal, and it's historical in its roots, shall we say, because it came from Western Europe, way back in the colonial days. Many huge fiefdoms and kingdoms and everything else had very formal type of landscapes. Pruned, the old green meatballs, boxes and balls type of stuff, and then vast, huge lawn areas. You were considered high society with the biggest lawn back then. And this day and age, it's kind of gone in a different way. But there are still many places that Maestro and I have seen where we have huge multi-acreage lawns in the eastern seaboard of the United States. They don't need irrigation. And if they do, it's only for a short period of time, but most of the time they don't even have irrigation. But the big, formal, stately estate type of landscapes where you look out over raised patios down into foyers that have big water features, I mean big pavilion type size water features, and then clipped hedges, perfectly maintained by multiple people. Well, you can scale that down if that's your bailiwick. You can scale it down to a residential yard if you like to get out there and clip 4 to 6 times a year. Then if you really want to spruce it up, leave some areas and some pockets where you can introduce a little bit of perennial color, annual color, seasonal color like bulbs and that kind of stuff. And it just kind of breaks up that monochromatic green. Hey, just remember to keep it within the scope and skill set that you have now and what you're going to have years from now. Many times, if you turn your landscape over to landscape professionals, mowing blowers, oftentimes you're going to end up with a formal theme because they will not selectively prune your landscape. They're going to come in there with hedge clippers, either powered or hand, and they're just going to do whatever it takes in the quickest expedient amount of time, and then they're going to move on to the Joneses down the street. So you have to be very, very explicit as far as how much formality in your landscape you want. The formal theme is certainly not the least amount of maintenance, but it's not the most either. So you kind of have to pick and choose how much you want to expel of your energy and your resources probably once a month. Most formal themes always have lawns, so you're probably going to be doing that once a week if you're doing it yourself. And you're clipping, like I said, 4 to 6 times a year, depending on the type of plant material you have. Most of it is going to be green, most of it is going to be hedged, and the type of plants that go along with that are hollies and boxwood, privets, taxus, that kind of stuff. So depending on what zone you're living in, you can go down that road as well. Okay, now this is the one I was telling you where the least amount of maintenance comes from. My oldest son moved from Northern California down to Arizona, and he went from 2-acre lot with a whole lot of maintenance, a whole lot of lawn. He went down onto a residential lot where he has rocks out front, rocks out back, and a pool. That's it. He probably reduced his maintenance time by 90% easily. And I'm sure that there's nothing there that has spray irrigation. It's all drip irrigation. So talk about going from a whole lot of work every weekend to, geez, I think I'll go play golf. You know, that's about what he has now. And that comes from the rock theme. The rock theme is not passe anymore. It used to be kind of, ew, you know, lava rock, that kind of stuff. But there's so many other ways that you can get beautiful gravels and boulders and river cobbles incorporated in a way that really looks slick. I know that there was one job that I did in the Central Valley many years ago where I had contrasting gravels, kind of a buckskin colored flagstone. There was dark gravels in between the flagstones, and then it was edged. And then on the outside, there was lighter colored gravels, and the 3 contrasting colors really worked well together. And you walked out from the big circular patio and you walked out through this walkway and right to the pondless waterfall. So it turned out pretty good. And we did that as a lawnless landscape as well. So when it comes from, say, once a week mowing, 4 times a year feeding, every other year irrigating, and if that doesn't sound familiar, I'll put it right here, that's your 412 lawn care. Now you go down to something that hardly ever needs maintenance, and the selection of your plant material can be the most drought tolerant thing, where maybe it needs water once a month, to, in some cases, if you're down in the Southwest, you may have some stuff there that doesn't need water at all, unless you want to just give it a little bit of something once in a while. But most of the time, it requires nothing. So think about the rock theme. You can incorporate small water features and other stuff in there, and the maintenance then bumps up a little bit, You can foo-foo it up just a little bit if you want to do something around your front door with container colors, or out on the back patio with some container color, just to break up some of the monotony. But remember that rock themes, if you're doing rock mulch basically, that it's not a place for doggo to be cutting and running through and messing it all up. You want to keep things kind of segregated, and it's not necessarily a theme for kiddos. You know, if they want to go out and play, they don't want to go out and play on hot gravel, period. So I remember doing a job many, many years ago, and across the street was a rock theme. These were retired folks that had a landscaper come in a couple years earlier and change out their lawn and everything, and they went to a rock theme. And I remember one time the alarm was going off, and some noises were heard, and I went over there to make sure that their house was okay, and I saw their backyard, and it was all rock as well. These guys basically picked up stakes and just started traveling, and their yard stayed okay. They would come home in the wintertime or whenever, and they would do a couple of weeks of fix up and clean up and take care of business type of thing, and they were gone again. And they didn't have to worry about it. And that's what the rock theme gives you, is such a low volume of maintenance that your other life's duties are not impinged by a heavy-duty landscape maintenance. There are those out there that love it, but oftentimes this particular theme is hard to attain because the level of skill or the level of knowledge about it cannot be attained or won't be attained. And it's really not that hard. It's as much sweat equity as any other theme that you could put in, and that's the water theme. If you have smaller yards that you take care of, but maybe it just doesn't float your boat much anymore, if you change to a water theme and go with maybe 2 or 3 vignettes within your backyard or even your front yard, and that sound of running water, gurgling water, flowing water, and putting them out there in these little separate areas. I could remember a customer that I did some maintenance for years ago, and they had 7 in their backyard. And they had them arranged in such a fashion and such segregation that they had the reading nook over here, the vignette, with a very quiet sheer descent type of water feature. And you walked out of that and you went over to the relaxation vignette where they had a hammock and they had just a little bit more of a gurgler. And then you went to the other side of the yard where the outdoor living area was with covered patio. And they had a small pondless type of waterfall, and you walked around the side and they had a small statuary type of waterfall, and out front you were greeted at the front door by a small gurgling water feature. And it was a water feature landscape, very shaded by mature trees. The reason I was there is because they were very elderly now and they couldn't take care of it the way they used to. And man, I saw pictures back in the zenith of this landscape when they were back in their 30s and 40s. Now they were in their high 70s. Wow, this place was spectacular. And all I did was go in and switch out some pumps, do some cleaning, had some pruning and raking and cleaned it all up for them. In about a week, it took that long. And we brought it back to life quite a bit. All the water features were working again, and the sound and resonance that went on in this place, boy, you opened up some windows and stuff. Their master bedroom had that gurgler going on out there, and it was very, very unique. It's not for everyone. It does require some maintenance. You can't take your eye off the water feature theme because in order to keep it running right, pumps have to be maintained. But heck, you got a big lawn, you're doing it once a week. You won't have to do it once a week with a water theme, but probably once a month. So consider some strategic placing of water features in your yard. It will really soothe. I remember one of the pondless water features at this house, it was over next to the fence where a little busier road was. They were one house in from the corner, and that water feature, it drowned out probably 50% of that road. 50%, not all of it, but it did dampen it down, and you got the aesthetic view of it as well. Another thing about water themes is they are a great attractor to wildlife. You've got the birds and the bees. You have, like where we were on Weed Patch Ranch, we had 2 water features, one front, one back, and you always had the bunnies, the squirrels, the coyotes, the possums, the raccoons would come in and get drinks and stuff. Birds would be taking baths in the water feature out back in the morning, and they'd be getting baths and drinks out front in the afternoon. Very, very nice if you like to have attractors for wildlife. And in the dry area that we were, I think they were kind of appreciative to have a dedicated water source that they could go to every day. All right, the last one is our sports theme. And a sports theme is generally not an entirety of a landscape, but more like a specialty in one part of the landscape. And when I say that, it depends on the size of yard that you have. If you have a smaller thing, but you're a golfer, you can get into putting greens, chipping greens, and that kind of stuff. If you have bigger yards and the kids are really active in sports, and I sure hope that kids are still active in sports, you know, you could have half-court basketball, you could have batting cages. I can remember pickleball courts, which are very popular still back on the eastern seaboard area, the east part of the country. And these sporting themes can be incorporated into many other of the themes we've already talked about today. But at least you have something that you enjoy, you provide for the kids. It's better than them running the streets, and they have a place to bring their friends and to entertain. There's also the old swimming pool. You can, if you're still doing that as well. Hey guys, that's what I have for you this week. Kind of a remake on one that we did when we first got the channel started. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, for Mitchell out there, hey, thanks for the comment. I do talk a lot, but most teachers generally do. Hey guys, I'll catch you next week. As always, to your landscape success, I appreciate your time. Consider subscribing, throwing me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you next Friday as always. Bye for now.